We are live, Your Worship.
Thank you. All right, council, I'd like to call this regular council meeting of January 23rd, 2024 to order with adoption of the agenda. I'd like to amend the agenda to have 11C prior to 11A, just for the flow of things. So if someone want to make that motion for me, please. Councilor Cherry, seconded by Councilor Lucelle. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of January 9th. Councilor Lucelle, Councilor Staphenhurst, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, I will move on to announcements from the mayor. And just as everyone in the community knows, we're back into snow removal and our crews are out doing a good job. One thing that I know I find frustrating, and I know Mr. Manson's here in the room, might find frustrating, is the amount of residents that push their snow out into the middle of the street, especially when there isn't windrows. So just want to advise people, it is an infraction to put your snow out into the street. So just to encourage you to keep it on your own property. Any comments or anything you'd like to add to that, Mr. Manson?
No, that's great.
All right, thank you. All right, we are going to move on to item 8A, recommendations from Committee of the Whole, municipal asset naming policy. So someone want to put that motion, Councilor Cherry?
Move that municipal asset naming policy C-2 be approved.
Second for the motion, please, Councilor Lucelle. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Orlando.
Your worship, I'm just pulling up this section here. I just had a question about how number one, there's a section highlighted. Is that just for a change? That's under staff. Is that?
Yeah, it means Director of Infrastructure and Planning or designate.
Yeah.
Councilor Orlando, through your worship, I believe I wanted to double check with the Director of Infrastructure. If he was willing to monitor this and bring it forward to council for final approval.
Mr. Black.
Absolutely.
That's the answer you
Yes.
wanted?
That is the
Yeah,
answer.
so if a request is made, Steve would review it, bring it to council for approval.
That's-
Yeah, thanks.
Any follow-up, Councilor?
Yeah, your worship, just one other section. I had a question about the policy talks about significant financial contribution, and the definition of that means it says means a monetary donation reflective of the total capital cost or appraised value of the amenity being considered for naming. I'm wondering how that is interpreted. What is that a half or more or what? I guess is my question.
Through your worship to Councilor Orlando, I don't think there is an exact amount to it. I think the final decision is up to council. So if somebody applied because they had provided a monetary donation, then it would be presented to you with the details and council could choose.
Okay.
Anything further, Councilor?
Your worship, yeah, just in follow-up to that, my concern, I guess, is that staff might be forced into a position of having to negotiate many different requests from the public, and I'm wondering what sort of staff thoughts are on stick handling that. I don't want to create a policy that would mean a lot of stress and time spent for staff on sort of a request coming off the street.
Well, Councilor Orlando, through your worship, I don't imagine there will be significant requests coming forward. The trigger for this was the Burgess Golf Course, and then we just thought it would be nice to have some type of guideline established. So the policy itself is the first page. And then the procedure are the following pages. I think, the policy statement where, the naming of corporate assets reflect a broad sense of social and community values. I think it's the intent of having the policy, and then council can determine, how they feel appropriate with applications.
And then if we're talking about financial compensation, so some group or organization comes along and names a facility, would like a facility named in their favor because of their financial contribution. We see other communities that do that, but it still comes down to council making that final decision. It's not cast in stone that that's going to happen. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Note, Councilor Orlando is in opposition. Balance of council is in favor. This motion has passed. Moving on to HB, municipal logo project. Someone want to put that motion, Councilor Lucille?
I move that the municipal logo project be supported as presented in the discussion paper entitled City of Revelstoke Visual Representation Proposal to Update the City's Corporate Logo at the January 11th, 2024 Committee of the Whole.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Stapehurst. Any discussion on this motion? Councilor Orlando?
Yeah, your worship, I think is a great initiative, as was discussed at the committee of the whole, in order to get a number of communications products updated for the city, such as the website, et cetera. The recommendation from the new communications coordinator was to tackle this project, and it was fortuitous timing that we have a 125th celebration so that we can do outreach to the community to gather their input on the project. I'm happy to see it go forward, and my commitment, and I'm sure everyone in council's commitment, is to support staff through this process, as it's something that is close to people's hearts, and a question of community identity, and also their community communication. So I'm looking forward to the process, and it's a great initiative.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. 8C, 4th Street traffic calming. Someone want to put the motion on, Councilor Lucille?
I move that Go by Bike Revelstoke report entitled 4th Street Traffic Calming, Cycling Infrastructure Area Study and Impact Analysis be referred to staff for consideration for recommendations, including budget impacts contained within the report.
Second for the motion, please, Councilor Cherry. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried unanimously. Moving on to 9A, bylaws, finance, 5-year financial plan. Someone want to put that on the table for me, please. Councilor Stapehurst.
I move that the 2024 to 2028 5-year financial plan bylaw number 2377 be read at first, second, and third time.
Second for the motion, please. Councilor Cherry. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried unanimously. Moving on to 9B. Walkabout Holdings. Someone want to make that motion, Councilor Stapehurst?
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2345 be adopted.
Second for the motion, Councilor Cherry. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Hartling, you're here on the camera. Any comments? Or you're just here to answer questions?
No comments. I'm just here to answer questions in Mr. Simon's absence.
Councilor Cherry and then Councilor Lucille.
Thanks, Richard. I was wondering if we can have an update on any changes from when this was last proposed to council.
Ms. Hartling?
Yeah, through your worship. So what you have in front of you is for adoption. The recommendation and resolution from council has been met by the applicant, and they have successfully registered both covenants, one that involves Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and the city. So prior to building on the lands, the applicant does require to complete the infrastructure upgrades to the highway and Oak Drive intersection. So there's all the requirements within that covenant to meet Ministry of Transportation requirements, city requirements that were put in as a resolution by council after giving third reading. And then there's another covenant on title that's registered. So the remainder of the land, so the rezoning is to rezone only the portion of phase 1 to the R2 zone. And then the remainder would stay at RR60 and no further development of those lands until an area plan and servicing has been satisfied to the city's standards. So there's that covenant protecting any further development. And so then council would see anything that's future developed on that portion of the land as well. And all of the covenants do write that in. They need to satisfy the city requirements before anything can be released.
Councillor Chair.
Thanks. I just want to make one last comment, Your Worship. I am wildly in favor of this. We had a lot of residents reach out about how they felt that intersection was unsafe. And it's great to see that this is going to be fixed up prior to any more development up there.
Great. Any other comments from council? Councillor Lisa, did I get to you?
Councilor Cherry had covered my questions.
Okay, Councillor Lando.
Hi, Your Worship. I have through the chair, I have a question for staff. One of the requirements outlined in the report is that the owner provide a design feasibility report for the Oak Drive Townley Street connection. The report references just a review of design options as part of the Johnson Heights neighborhood plan. I am just reaching out to make sure I have clarity on what that section means regarding the Oak Drive Townley Street connection. And I was wondering if staff could elaborate more on that part.
Ms. Harling, any comment on that?
Through your worship to Councillor Orlando, which section are you referencing, the previous staff report or the current one that's in front of council for the adoption?
I am on the current one. I am on looking at page 3, I believe, under sort of the second row at the top there where it says the owner provides.
Yeah. Through your worship to Councillor Orlando, those have been provided with the review of Ministry of Transportation, and the owner did a transportation impact assessment with design requirements. I do not see just the covenants are on here. So those design options were part of the neighborhood plan that has now been canceled. So those would have to be updated at the time as if there's any future development on the RR60 lot, then those design options would be reviewed again and be required to be updated to satisfy Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure. So those have been satisfied to them to date, but within the covenant, it does state any new development needs to go through another further review with Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. So currently they're satisfied with the design feasibility, but that would be looked at again for any further development.
Any follow-up, Councillor?
Your worship, thank you very much through the chair. To speak in practical terms, regarding one longstanding goal of the Johnson Heights neighborhood was getting pedestrian as well as vehicle connection to downtown without having to go on the highway. I realize the covenants in front of us talk about design improvements at the highway intersection. I guess speaking generally as it relates to this particular matter at hand and future development in that area, and also as it relates to the neighborhood planning process, that is now been set aside. Can we speak directly to the possibility of that connection, essentially putting a roadway through to Townley Street? I'm trying to understand the wording of this here, whether that's specifically what we're talking about, and whether that's on the table for the future or not on the table for the neighborhood up there.
Ms. Hartling, any comment on that moving forward? And then Mr. Black will weigh in a bit too.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Orlando, that is in the second covenant linked in the staff report there. So the one with Ministry of Transportation is the required improvements to the upgrading the highway Oak Drive intersection just to get those 25 single family or duplex lots. The remainder of the property in the future phases, that cannot be developed until an area plan is submitted to the city that satisfies requirements for connections to Townley, water, sewer, all of the servicing standards. So that'd be a substantial area plan. That would look similar to the neighborhood plan, but would have to prove out feasibility. So that second covenant holds that property that no further development can happen until those are submitted to the city. So that discussion with Townley, Oak Drive, that would need to be satisfied with any future development on the remainder of the parcel. That's R60 that would have to be rezoned.
Mr. Black.
Thank you, Your Worship. Future development will be restricted as described. The improvements that are being required by the developer at this time will alleviate many of the concerns that we've seen on the highway, which is a huge benefit to the city, as this is being required with very little development application to the parcels up there. So this buys us the time to make those safety improvements on the highway, to make sure that those connections at Townley and Oak are feasible and safe for the near future. The next phase is, as more and more beds are put up in that neighborhood, will then, through the traffic analysis, help us determine when we need to then consider a signalization on that other connection in order to alleviate the volume and level of service implications to those two intersections. And so that will be coming. We have this, and I believe many members of council and are familiar that we are looking at and have considered a connection from Townley to Oak. In addition, we're also connecting pedestrian ways through the new subdivision that is going in off of Townley, just to the east of the overhead. And that will provide some connection to Begbie and up into that neighborhood. So we're building that network. The future developments for this project will also include multi-use paths and sidewalks for the community to better alleviate the need for people to get in their cars. So those things are all coming, and as staff comfortable that the Ministry of Highways has taken a very conservative view of this project and ensuring that the community is safe. And those intersection improvements are coming before we see a huge number of new beds, pillows in that area. And I think this is the right way to go.
Thank you.
Councilor Chair.
I'm okay, Worship. I was just gonna sum it up in Paul's absence, as I'm quite familiar with this project, and what's happening in the area, but it's.
Good. Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, just a clarification. I thought the next phase, just going from memory, I might be mistaken, but I thought the next phases would be requiring that connection to Townley. So we're talking two different things, the highway improvements and then the connection to Townley for future to get the traffic off the highway altogether. Am I mistaken in that?
Mr. Black, comment?
Through your worship, Councillor Palmer, I believe that was the previous plans that were considered under the Johnson Heights neighborhood plan, which we've now since terminated. The reason that the neighborhood plan did not come together is that only one of the developers in that area was interested in pushing projects forward. The rest of them were not financially or we're not ready to commit a large amount of funds to address the neighborhood plan in a comprehensive nature. As council may be aware, there is very little infrastructure in that area. We need new water pipes. We need a lot of sewer pipes. I've got a lift station that is oversubscribed right now on Oscar Street, the intersection improvements. And so with this new plan, we will be addressing these in a more methodical method. And those connections will be addressed as needed now. The Ministry of Highways or Transportation and Infrastructure has created a mechanism for us to push back those necessary future connections, and that will be based upon the traffic impact analysis and the number of pillows that are being built in that neighborhood coming in the future.
Follow up, Councillor Palmer?
That's fine for now.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call a question. Oh, Councillor Orlando.
Yeah, through the chair, your worship, and thank you, Director Black. Following up to Councilor Palmer's question, I think if I'm a resident of Johnson Heights and I'm watching this meeting and reading this report, I want clarity, because it pertains to what's happening in the neighborhood. And just to be crystal clear on this, I realize this report, the covenants in front of us talk about improving the highway intersection right now. My question, as Councillor Palmer alluded to, is about a future connection by road, such as near Mount Begbie Brewery through to the new subdivision or some other way to Townley Street. And what I am wanting to make sure here is that as that is not off the table, that is under consideration, that requires future development applications such as this larger portion of this lot, the R60 lot. And that is something that staff is still considering because I know that's like just a longstanding goal of residents in that neighborhood. And I guess I'd like to know now, just by since we've canceled the Johnson Heights plan, is there anything preventing that, such as ongoing development that would not allow that roadway to go through slopes, grades, and everything? Is that on the table for the future? And that's just direct question. If I'm a resident of Johnson Heights, I want to know. It's fine, we're making improvements at the highway now, that's great. But in the future, will there be a pathway for us to drive and ride a bike and walk to town without having to access the highway?
Mr. Black, you're confirming that, correct?
I believe so, in an indirect way, as staff, unless council directs staff to pursue that connection and fund that, and the estimates are on the order of $10 million for that level of improvement. That could be undertaken as a city project. However, the developers in that area, in a perfect world, would pay or take on that attribute for the community as it is impacting the community due to their development. Therefore, the timing becomes driven not by us. It has been mitigated in a minor way by the ministry's covenants on title. And in the future, as described by Ms. Hartling, the future, and I don't want to call it a neighborhood plan, but the infrastructure concept plans for that area will be considering the things that you mentioned, i.e. pedestrian and water, sewer, etc.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Ms. Hartling, you have comments, and then Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, through your worship, Mr. Black covered a majority of what I was going to say. Just with specific to this application, within the covenants, we do reference the Townley Highway connection with Oak Drive. It is specific to this development. With the transportation impact assessment, it does reference the two different connections. The covenant requires the highway Oak Drive before the 25 units of phase 1, and then the owner has voluntarily agreed to carry out, and it's in the covenant, to do highway improvements with any future phases of the remainder parcel, and that's with Highway 1 and Townley Road, and that would be developer led though, so that would be if they come up with a plan and then meet the city's other covenant that requires an area plan created by a qualified professional, and then also a servicing concept plan for all the water, sewer, stormwater improvements to satisfaction of the city. That would be that future lot. So that would be developer led if council directed the city separate from that. That would be another discussion. However, these covenants do require this developer to make improvements for the neighborhood if they are wanting to have any future development.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hartling. Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. I won't belabor the point, but I am a little bit concerned. You asked a pretty direct question for affirmation, and the answer was in a roundabout way. So it's to me, there's some confusion of what I understood. There was clarity before, but I'll have to do some research on that. So that's all my comments for now.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, any other comments on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9C, zoning amendment bylaw 2365 on Arrow Drive. Someone want to put that motion on the table for me? Councilor Luceno.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2365 be adopted.
Seconder for the motion, please, Councilor Staples. Any discussion on this motion? Any questions for Ms. Hartling? Councilor Lama.
Sorry, Your Worship, and thank you. I don't have questions now. I just need a minute to haul up the documents as we shift from topic, so.
Any other comments from Council?
Just in the meantime, Your Worship, can we get Ms. Hartling to give us an update?
Sure. Ms. Hartling, can you do a little update on this, please?
Yeah, council considered this zoning bylaw amendment for first, second, third reading at the October 10th meeting. And a condition of adoption was that the owner registers an amenity contribution covenant for $300,000 that must be paid prior to any future building permit for any multifamily building. This covenant has gone through legal review with the city and the applicant, and it is now registered on title. And this, before any building on the subject property, if this rezoning is adopted, before a building permit can be issued, the owner must pay the full amount of the amenity contribution to the city's affordable housing reserve. And then they can apply for it to be released. So that is registered, and that was a condition of between third reading and adoption that the owner has now satisfied. I believe the applicant is also in attendance if you have any questions for them, but this was the only condition prior to adoption. After this, if the rezoning is adopted, then council has the form and character development permit to look at that shows the look of the buildings that they've seen, that you have seen at the October meeting. Nothing has changed with the development proposal.
Okay. That's your question, Council?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Orlando?
I was just reviewing here. Just a quick question in terms of the contribution. I don't know if Ms. Hartling mentioned the housing reserve contribution. If we could just reiterate that, if possible.
Can you just go back over that? Because he's already paid that $300,000 to the housing, is that correct?
Through your worship, it's conditioned to be paid prior to any building permit issuance. So the land cannot be redeveloped until the 300,000 amenity contribution has been paid.
Any other questions from council? Are you comfortable, Councilor Orlando? Can I move on? Or
Yeah, no, I'm
call a
fine.
question? All right, I will call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried unanimously. All right, moving on to item 11. We'll do item C first, which is the development permit for 1679 Arrow Drive. Any presentation, Ms. Hartling, or are you just there to answer questions on this one?
I do not have a formal presentation, but I can bring up any of the plans to go over for any refresher of the form and character of the fourplexes and duplexes and any of the landscaping if council wishes to see any plans, but there's no formal presentation.
Okay, let's put the item on the table first, and then we can look at that if we need to. Someone want to put this on for me? Councilor Lucero.
I move that development permit DE 2023-012 be issued at 1679 Arrow Drive for the form and character of a multifamily building strata development containing 30 dwelling units, 1 duplex and 7 fourplexes.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Staples. Any further comments or questions from council? Ms. Hartling, do you want to just bring up those images for council to have a look at?
Can you see the PDF document in front of you?
You can.
Oh, okay, great. So I just have a few drawings here and I can go through the full package as well. So the subject property here at 1679 Arrow Drive. So the applicant has submitted a substantial landscaping plan. And one of the staff's recommendations, staff recommend that the development permit be issued and that a landscape security for 125% of the landscape estimate be secured before building permit issuance. So there's substantial landscaping around the perimeter of the property in between all of the buildings. It is proposed to be a building strata. So you have boulders, trees, shrubs, and turf grass around the buildings. This is just a close-up of, it is proposed to be a strata road here. And then the landscaping, before we release the security, does have to be confirmed to be complete by the landscape professional. So there is a full process to make sure that the landscaping does look as you're seeing today. And then the form and character of the buildings, these haven't changed since council's reviewed the rezoning. And this is a look of one of the duplex buildings and one of the fourplex buildings. All buildings within the development are to have the same form and character. So they're proposing to have tandem driveways with parking in the garage. So 2 parking spaces in the garage, 1 in the driveway, landscaping around the perimeter with back decks. There's proposed to have solar panels and heated driveways, and then also to have the snow, they have a snow management plan, and then the snow to be retained on the building or not shed onto the neighbor's property, but to the side. And then the proposed materials are metal roofing and then hardy board siding on the buildings with timbers in the front and covered entrances. So this just gives you an idea of the look of the buildings. And
Certainly, did this go to APC for form and character?
Through your worship, yes. It went to the Advisory Planning Commission, which is outlined in the report. The Advisory Planning Commission supported the form and character and that it complemented the existing neighborhood. They did make a comment about trails. And staff connected with the school district because they were asking about trails connecting from this development to the school. The school district has commented that they do not want to see any trails connecting through their neighboring their property with private developments, and that they would like to see the sidewalks being used, but no unlit trails to the Mackenzie Village or this proposed development at this time.
Thank you for that comment. Any other questions or comments from council? Councilor Cherry.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was just looking for clarification. I understand that the school board has axed some of the trail connectivity. Is there still to be pedestrian connectivity through joining private developments, or is this kind of the end of that discussion?
Ms. Harlan.
Through your worship, there's no proposed trail connectivity through these two developments. It's something that could be proposed between the two neighbors, but for a community, for the community as a whole, the staff has, the applicant will be required to put frontage improvements for a multi-use path along the roadway. So that's what will be secured by staff. There could be future discussions with trail connectivities, but they are two private developments, and would be benefiting those private developments, but not as a community as a whole.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions from council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 2, someone want to put that on the table for me, please, Councilor
Keep
Lucelle?
going. I move that the owner provides security for the due and proper completion of landscaping in the amount of 125% of the amount identified in the cost estimate to the city of Revelstoke in the form of cash or unconditional irrevocable auto-renewing letter of credit issued by a Canadian Chartered Bank or credit union prior to issuance of a building permit.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Cherry. Any further discussion on this motion for your landscape? Councilor Orlando.
Your worship, I'm wondering if staff has prepared a report.
Any comment, Ms. Hartling, regarding this?
Through your worship, Councilor Orlando, a report for the landscaping, or
So I'm on the wrong thing here. I've had Wi-Fi connection issues ongoing through the meeting. So this is item 11C 2, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. No, I don't need that.
Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 11A, financial disclosure policy. Someone want to put that on the table for me, Councilor Staples?
I move that policy P-12, financial disclosure of municipal employees, be approved as amended to reflect the current designated municipal employees.
Seconder for the motion, please, Councilor Cherry. Any further discussion on this motion? Councilor Orlando.
Your worship, just to clarify, this is just reflective of changes to title, staff titles.
Ms. Floyd?
Through your worship, Councilor Orlando, yes. We have included the manager of human resources, as that position didn't exist, as well as the manager of building and bylaw services.
Great, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried. Thank you. Item B. Visitor Information Center RFP. Someone want to put that motion on, Councilor Cherry?
Move that the proposed timelines for the new request for proposal for the operations of the visitor center, operations of the Visitor Information Center be approved.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Stapenhurst. Mr. Nato, Mr. Black, any comments or presentation that you'd like to highlight?
Your worship, and to the members of council, this was brought forward to you, I believe, in December of last year, that the staff committed to bring back a schedule for implementation of the new RFP that fulfills that request.
Okay, any comments or questions from council? Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. So the question, it seems to me the discussion was showing, earlier discussion was showing a much earlier release, and this is not being done until April 1st. why such a lengthy delay?
Comment, Mr. Black?
There was numerous components of the RFP that raised concern in the previous iteration, and staff want to ensure that we've had adequate time to address any questions that can be addressed prior to issuance of the RFP to minimize any conflicts, questions, impacts to that process. And we just want to be clear and have time to do it properly. As council is aware, the operation of the VIC has been reaching to the Chamber of Commerce for a period of 9 months. And so the turnover period will be October of this year. So there is no significant rush in staff's opinion to push this forward faster.
Okay, follow up, Council Palmer?
I guess my concern is that the sort of lengthy delay, we've been having shifting, and I apologize to the public because there's a certain amount of in-camera information that it's really, there's some fuzziness there. I can't remember what I can disclose and can't. But by having this such a long time, again, it's something that's sort of been an abeyance or confusion around it for some time, that we're going to get shifting right close to the deadline of this extended contract with the chamber, which has been shifted several times. The date's been shifted many, many times. So I guess that's my concern, and it seems to me to be an unreasonable amount of delay on something that's been pretty confusing already. And I just foresee us having another episode of confusion. I'm going to be opposed to this because I'm just concerned about a lot of the messiness. I could ask a number of questions just for clarity because I can't remember what, as far as, who's providing the service. The chamber's been providing this for the longest time, and as over the years has just been reinstated. But now we're going out to an RFP process. And maybe just an answer, maybe you can answer, Mayor Souls, like, why are we going to an RFP? What's happened? Maybe just a quick snapshot of what's happened and why we're in this RFP process for something that for many, many years was just automatically put ahead.
Mr. Black, I'll get you to just weigh in, but I think we've gone to RFP process because Tourism Revelstoke wanted the contracts separate, one for doing the MRDT and one for visitor information center. Is that correct?
I believe you're correct, Your Worship. Again, parachuting in here to this process, understanding that there were some concerns in the previous RFP process. We're just continuing that same process to conclusion.
Right. And then in timelines on this, currently the chamber has extended their tenure to September, and then this will just follow up and kind of, in my words, seamlessly flow. Mr. Parliament, comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify, to the question posed by Councillor Palmer, when council granted the chamber a 9-month extension, it was highlighted by the chamber that they did not want to see a transition to occur during the summer season. They didn't want to see a transition during the busy times of April, May, June, July, August. And with that, it's either an early turnaround like January, February, or a later fall turnaround. And one of the conditions that the chamber accepted with the 9-month extension is that the transition would occur in the fall. So we tried to align these timelines with that request. So when we granted the 9-month extension to the chamber to September 30th, 2024, it was intended to align these timelines on the RFP with the transition to the new operator post September 30th, 2024. In terms of the other questions on the RFP itself and direct award, that's a separate discussion. I mean, we could certainly have that. But in terms of this report, these timelines align the 9-month extension with the chamber. Thank you.
Follow up, Councillor Palmer?
Okay, so we're not going to answer the question of why we've gone to an RFP process. Like I'm talking before, why we've gone to an RFP process. But with this RFP process, how many proposals are we hoping to have?
I'll attempt to answer that. At most 3, most likely 1. I think the 3 right now, if I had to guess, would be the current operator. It could be Tourism Revelstoke. It could be the city of Revelstoke. I doubt very much if we're going to have 3. That's maximum. Could it be another proponent that surprises us? Sure. If the city doesn't bid, which we don't plan to bid, that would be the maximum of 3, but most likely 1 or 2. If I had to guess.
Thanks, through the mayor. Thank you for that answer. My point more to council now is this will probably be passing as it is with the timeline, which seems late to me. My expectation that was going to be earlier. I'll note that what we've gone through on this, the contradictions of a direct reward of a report that's going to be before us later on in this meeting. And if we look back to the contradictions that we've had through this whole process, I'll leave it at that for now, Mayor Soul, again, because I'm not sure what information I can share from the in-camera sessions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Note, Councillor Palmer is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. This motion passes. Going to move on to item 11D, Centennial Park Pump Track. And Mr. Nato, any presentation prior to me asking for the motion on the table?
No, your worship, no formal presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, someone want to put this motion on the table for me, please? Councillor Lucien.
I move that an exemption from the purchasing and tendering policy for the pump track project at Centennial Park be given the unique nature of the works.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Orlando. Any questions regarding the process regarding the pump track? Councillor Orlando.
Your worship, yes, I would appreciate if staff could provide an update and synopsis of what's this all about.
Mr. Nato.
Thank you, your worship. So in terms of the pump track, members may recall that we discussed it during budget deliberations. So in 2021, Parks and Rec Master Plan identified the pump track as a high priority project. So it was included in the financial plan. Between the RCA, the Revelstoke Cycling Association, and myself, we reached out to Vela Solutions to provide us with a preliminary design in order for us to have some costing information to include in the budget. I apologize for the hoarseness in my voice. I might lose my voice during this conversation. So they came to Revelstoke and we met with them on site. And as a result of that meeting, they provided us with a design concept, which included a bike park, jump track, and a pump track, and some costing estimates, which include design build for the project, an accessible pathway, site furnishings, signage, and landscaping. So that's how we got to the total project cost. And we are recommending that we go with Vela Solutions because they're unique in their pump track design, and they're the only pump track builder that can build a pump track that's designed to UCI standards, which is Union of Cyclists International Standard. And once you have that pump track built to those design standards, it provides the city with the opportunity to be included in the competitive circuit for pump track racing, which would be a great opportunity for the community, and currently Vela Solutions is the only pump track builder that designs that type of pump track. So this project is quite similar to Sycamoose, Vernon, Kamloops. They're all going with this type of design standard. Sycamoose is on the docket for May of 2024, Vernon to follow, and then Kamloops to follow. So we'd be joining in the same circuit. So staff is recommending that we move forward with Vela Solutions for this reason.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on the motion on the table? Councillor Lando, follow.
Yeah, your worship, and thank you, Director Donato, for the presentation. I'm happy to support this resolution before us. You know, with my experience working on skate park stuff, definitely you want to go with the specialist contractors, because although the risk is that somebody who doesn't have the experience sort of eyeballs and says, yeah, I could probably do that, and the actual result is not workable. And I've also had opportunities to speak with the RCA members involved most directly in this project. I'm just really happy to see it moving along and moving forward. Forward to construction. So
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Item number 2, Councillor Lusardi, you want to put that on?
Sure. I move that pre-budget approval be authorized for the pump track spending initiative for $750,000 for the draft 2024 to 2038 long-term financial plan with the funding strategy listed in the draft plan.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Cherry. Any discussion on this motion? Councillor Palmer, then Councillor Orlando.
Yeah, just a question. Will the final figure, this be coming back to council for any further approval, or is this going to be sort of the end of council's involvement in as far as the financial components?
Mr. Donato?
Your worship, I believe everything's
Ms. Moore is on. Do you want her to answer?
sure.
Ms. Moore, would you like to answer that for me? Sorry, apologize.
That's okay, through the chair. Yes, I can answer that. So the draft plan currently has $750,000 in the budget, of which some of that is listed as being externally funded as well. With the increased budget and to build up the full scope with the proposal that we received, staff will be seeking additional external funds for this project. We are quite confident that we will have 1.5 years to secure that funding, and we'll be able to get there. If we are unable to, we have a shortfall, we may have to come back to council in the next budget process to determine how to fund that. However, I do believe that we will have time to find additional funds to fund that additional $250,000.
Great, thank you, Ms. Moore. Follow up, Councillor Palmer?
No, thank you very much. That's clear, thanks.
All right, any other comments, Councillor Orlando? Sorry, go ahead.
your worship, thank you. And through the chair, just a question for staff regarding budget changes and the extra the requirement outlined by Director Moore. Just for the public's perspective, how will this impact construction? What is our construction timeline here? What is and isn't contingent on finding extra funding?
Mr. Donato, do you want to weigh in?
Through your worship. So the intent would be to secure all funds before we start with construction, but this phase will allow us to enter into a contract with Vela Solutions for their components so that we can get to construction drawings with the build anticipated in 2025. If funds can be secured early in 2024, there may be an opportunity for a late fall build. But we have to reconsider that at that stage on whether there's any value to doing that or just waiting till the spring of 2025. But right now, that is the intent, would be spring of 2025.
Follow up, Council.
Your worship, no.
Good.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Item number 3, Councillor.
Yep, I move that the city enter into a contract for services with Vela Solutions to design and construct a pump track at Centennial Park at a cost not to exceed $702,000 on the terms identified in their September 29th, 2023 proposal.
Seconder for that motion, please, Councillor Stapler. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Cherry.
Sorry, Your Worship, this might be slightly outside of what's in front of us, but I think it's along the lines. I just have a question for staff through the chair. You've obviously taken a deep dive and a look at their proposal. Can you ensure that it's not the exact same pump track that they're going to be putting in neighboring communities and that there is some difference between them?
Through your worship, this will be unique to Revelstoke.
Thank you. That's all the only question I had.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 11E, RMR fireworks request. Someone want to put that motion on the table for me, please? Councillor Cherry.
That Revelstoke Mountain Resort is authorized, I move that Revelstoke Mountain Resort is authorized to set off professional grade fireworks on February 18th, 2024 between the hours of 6:30 PM and 7:30 PM at Revelstoke Mountain Resort located at 2950 Camosi Road, following any terms and conditions related to fire and life safety as identified within, and that Revelstoke Mountain Resort follow all requirements of the Federal Explosives Regulations 2013 Part 18 display fireworks.
It's going to be a rocking commentary on reading that one. Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Roussel. All right, any comments on Family Day fireworks? Seeing none, Chief DeRosa, I see you turned your camera on. Do you want to make comment on this?
Just available to your worship and council if you have any questions, but it looks like you're all good.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 13, Revelstoke and Area Economic Development Commission meeting minutes. And Councillor Orlando, this is your commission. Any comments on the minutes?
Your worship, yes, just a brief update. This agenda is a bit harder to provide a brief synopsis, largely because a lot of the projects have been referenced before. Staff provided updates on a new economic development website that is launching very soon, and the commission members had opportunities to give updates. There was updates on next steps for destination management plan. So a lot of the implementation work is happening through community economic development. So there was reviews of those ones. There was also a review of priorities projects and other initiatives such as backcountry planning, Indigenous relationships and stewardship, tourism, tech strategy, and a number of other ongoing works that are underway by the commission. And there was also forestry updates. Members of the commission, some members of the commission and staff did a tour of RCFC, learning about what they do, and another commission meeting, and a lot of these items have been discussed before and various stages of progress and updates.
Thank you. Any other comments on the Economic Development Commission meeting minutes? Seeing none, I will. Ms. Delassalle, do we have any questions from the press?
No questions from the press, Your Worship.
Okay, and Ms. Braun, are you still on? I think not. All right, just wait a moment here for me. So Ms. Braun was going to say goodbye, as most people know. She has tendered her resignation, and this would be her last council meeting. She has a bug and she can barely speak, so I'll express her thanks and wish her all the best as she moves on. I will now ask to go in camera pursuant to section 90.1 A and C of the community charter. Someone want to make that motion? Councillor Stephenhurst, seconded by Councillor Lucio. All in favor? Motion's carried. We'll take a brief break and go in camera. Thank you.